I was saying I had like also quite a few issues with like emails sending out and like registration links and all these things. So I hope that we can iron all those out in these next weeks. I don't know. I don't usually like to blame the planets, but these things do play a role. And but we're persevering. You know, we won't give up. So I'm always extremely grateful for those who do show up and persevere. So that's very good. Yeah, we roll with it. You know, I'm excited to do this, and I'm very inspired to do that. And I'm also inspired by all of you. And I saw your homework, Anouk, that you sent me, which is very nice. You know, so I love that sort of interaction, engagement, etc. And like from a selfish point of view, like I'm doing this for me, right? I want to learn from you and how to like add some value or share some ideas and insights and that we could all benefit from in our journey of expressing what it is that we do, you know, making a difference in our clients' lives, and how can we do that? I'm not the teacher, I'm not the mentor, I don't have the answers. I have some ideas about where the answers might come from, but I love the community aspect. You know, like when you go to a yoga school, you can all learn the yoga poses, and like you hold the pose a little longer than when you're on your own at home. Maybe you'll do yoga on Monday morning, but next week you're like, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. And then, you know, like the community helps us to do a better job, to show up, to persevere when we find a struggle and like that. So, you know, I'm very inspired by my mentor, Sun Yi. That is the guy behind the brands like Gabby Bernstein and Jay Shetty and all of those. And so I'm in his mentorship program myself. And so what we are doing today is also a part of that. Like put yourself out there, like jump back into the game. Like we used to do this, Anouk, you know, like years ago, we did tons of these. Like I remember one workshop we had, like, I don't know if it was a workshop, but it was more like a webinar with GoToMeeting, right? Like back then. And we had like 900 or so people on it. 900. Can you imagine those days? That was with Simone, obviously, who has the, you know, the magic power to reach far and wide. Like that sort of magical unicorn power was really basically amazing. Yeah, I will share with you, Anjali. Yeah, so like I said, it's been a little rocky start with this, and even now I think people are trying to get in. So I might be a little distracted sending the link over to people asking me. So sorry for that. But in any case, like I said, I don't really have a clear roadmap as to where we're going with this, although I have a rough idea, like a rough blur vision, and hopefully it becomes more focused as we embark upon this path, right? I'm not sure if everyone got the slides and the replay and the questions from last week. We can go over that a little bit. I also have some new questions and some new points that I want to unpack, which is about the three layers of value, right? That that people perceive or don't perceive, depending on how we present it, and what we can do to bring, you know, the most inner value to the surface, right? I think that might be very interesting. I find it very interesting myself. So hence, you know, us practicing here. Just give me one second. While people are asking me for the link to join, I feel so bad that we messed up this part. You know, it's not so like even internet marketing and all of this stuff. It's still not so easy. You know, apparently. But we persevere. One second here. There is correct link. Yeah. But anyway, I would say let's just sort of dive into it for today. Yeah. So yeah, so we'll just sort of go over it a little bit and see where we end up. I do have some slides for today. I usually don't like to be like a talking head over just a bunch of slides, but I'll come in and out with the slide just to make the point, the definition. Like there's a couple of definitions that we just like to start off with. And just give me a second here. Well, I'll send this over. So yeah, the homework from last week was basically like to give me 3 to 5 brands that you love, that you know, and that you feel, you know, some sort of loyalty or some sort of like recognition of something that it does for you, like that adds some value in your life, right? And then name 3 to 5 brands. That's the second question, that you know them well. And as a matter of fact, you know them well enough to know that I would never buy from them because of this and this reason, right? So that would be more considered a negative value. Like values are really of 2 types. Well, I mean, there are many ways to approach the topic, but in this particular concept, the values are 2 types. They're positive values and they're negative values. So positive values are values that you move towards, right? So you are looking to be a part of that. You're looking to sort of ignite or activate those values in your life and or in the lives of your customers, right? So they're what I would call positive values. Then there are also negative values. They're values that are also very strong and pronounced, but they're values that you move away from. So they're negative values. So you stay away from like these particular brands because of these reasons. So you know them well, but they don't mean nothing to you. Like there's nothing that you would buy from them. You wouldn't recommend them, etc. You know, and it's important part of being self-aware to know what you want, but also to know what you don't want, right? It's also like being very clear about like the type of customer that you would love to work with and the type of customer that you would not want to work with. You know, and that's not like being arrogant or something like that, but it's also in the customer's interest. You know, you want a customer to work with you who is very much aligned with your own values and your own way of working. And so you know, so there's a really important part of being self-aware and communicating that, because you know, there's an example of a company that we worked with that came to us, and before they came to us, they had spent good money on developing a really fancy logo and a very expensive looking website, and they bought a lot of media, you know, with social media advertising and stuff like that. So they looked like they were everywhere for that like 2 weeks of launching, right, their new product. And then, but sales were very little. They did not really do a lot of sales. And they were quite disappointed, even although the campaign was great. They had a lot of subscribers and they had a lot of people download all of the freebies that they were giving, right? And so they were asking like, well, how come we didn't like this didn't convert into actual customers and business, right? And that's because they never talked about the problems that their products solve. They were only talking about sign up here for the freebie, you get a free webinar, this and that, blah, blah, blah. They were only talking about themselves. They were only trying to impress, right? And in trying to impress, they got a lot of followers, but they were all the wrong kind of followers. These followers had no need for their product or solution. They didn't, because they never talked about the problem, right? They only talked about the solution. But if the solution is not linked to a problem, it has no value. It has value to the company that's trying to present it, like shove it down your throat, but it didn't really have any. So they didn't really talk about what matters to the customer. They only talked about what mattered to them. And so there was a complete mismatch. And the idea that a lot of people believe, like in the beginning, especially, that, oh, I have a business idea. I'm registered now with the Chamber of Commerce or wherever you register your business. Now, the next thing I need like a fancy logo, fancy name card, business cards, a fancy website with all bells and whistles, so I can impress the competition, so I can sort of like wipe out the competition, so I could present myself as a real legit business, right? And so all of that is very much like focused around you, and you, like me. Look at me, look at me. You're just trying to be interesting instead of interested, right? So how can we become more interested in our customers rather than trying to impress them with how great we are, right? So because they don't know yet how great you are, because they don't have a problem that would allow for your solution to demonstrate how great you are. So there's a complete mismatch. So I would often say, like, if you're just beginning, start with a simple website, a simple landing page, a simple campaign, talk to customers and find out what it is they're struggling with so you can add some value. Actually, it's a little bit like what we're trying to do here today and in these coming weeks also. Like it's key for me to understand like where you are struggling with in your journey of trying to present yourself, of trying to connect with the right fit customers, also known as ideal clients. So I don't know if we should talk about last week's homework, which is the three, portions, like especially the third question, which is like, why do you feel you struggle in explaining what it is that you do, right? Let me just get one slide up here from I think last week, right? Yeah, let me just go back here and share my screen. Oh yeah, slideshow. Can you see my screen here? Yeah. So being unbrandable. So the first question was, can you name one of three like Maverick or conformist brand? Conformist? I think I misspelled this. And why do you think that they are a nonconformist brand, right? So, and what is a nonconformist brand? So that's a brand that doesn't really like conform to it should be an O, yeah, to like the common sort of marketing rules, right, that you learn in school when you go and have a marketing lesson, or even like so many courses that you can take. And I'm not saying here that these courses are wrong or these frameworks don't work. I'm just saying like they're too generic oftentimes, especially for the type of people that I work with, which are more like the holistic, spiritual driven, values, purpose driven entrepreneurs, right? They don't feel like, these frameworks don't really help me in expressing myself. So a great example of a Maverick brand, I would say, is Gary Vee, right? Who's heard of Gary Vee? And but I would also say Sun Yi, or I would also say somebody, or more like a corporate brand like Tom's. Has anyone heard here of the Tom's shoes brand? Yeah. So what do you think makes Tom's brand a Maverick brand, a nonconformist brand? Does anyone want to raise their hand and share? And I know you guys usually have a lot to say. So please, go ahead and unmute yourself, Anjali.
Tom's brand, the way that they see themselves as nonconformist is that he himself said that he's not in the shoe business. He's actually in the environmental business and in the sustaining environment. So he just uses the shoes as a catalyst and as a reminder that those proceeds actually help smaller communities to get water, to get food, things like this. Shoes is just something that he uses, and people that purchase Toms, they know that they are purchasing at a higher price, but it is aligned with their values.
Fantastic. I love how you explain that. Awesome. That is absolutely true. Their mission is more than just making money, right? They have a purpose that is bigger than just making money. Making money is merely a function of the business. You need money to run a business and to go and have the impact that you have envisioned. But it's not just about the money. Money is not the goal. The goal is bigger than just making money. So I would definitely consider that a Maverick brand, also a disrupting brand, right? That does things very different than what normal people would expect, or how you would hear it from a business coach if they were to tell you how to run this business profitably, successfully with long-term success, right? You would probably not give free shoes for every pair that was, so that's quite a very Maverick brand, I would definitely say. Yeah, well done. Well done. I know you did your homework, so I might actually just put you on the spot a little bit if you want to share a little bit about not just why Tom's brand is a Maverick brand, but any brand that you can think of that's a nonconformist, like a Maverick brand.
Yeah, okay, I had three brands. One of them is Anna Kwaars. She's a Dutch, marketing business coach, and she's very original, and I don't know, she makes things that I really love. And Yeah, she makes videos with audio in the same time, and it's all completely different from anything else, and I like it very much. And you have also this outdoor brand, I forgot the name, but now they say don't buy our coats
Okay.
because they want to save the environment, and so they say don't buy our coats. And if you really want a coat, then buy our coat. But that I like very much also.
What are they called?
Yeah, I forgot about it. Very well-known brand, an outdoor brand.
Okay.
I look it up.
Did you send it in the email? Because I can look it up.
No. The email I also said there's a fashion brand. It doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
And the whole story about that was really my brand because it was different. It was fun. It was, yeah, there were designers, but you said you saw all the designs that were on the bags and everything. It was a real, very special brand. And then they said to the head designer, you have to go. And within 2 years, they were bankrupt. Because I remember that I went to the shop and I looked around and I almost cried because it was everything the same as everyone else. Not what it was like. Oh, it was terrible. And it's almost 30 years ago. And there are lots of people still regretting that. It was such a special brand. And then the designer later had her own brand, which was also very successful. But they were non-conformist, what you say, not like everyone else. Yeah, I don't know exactly, but it was special. Yeah, you had to be a little bit extraordinary to buy their stuff. Yeah. And I had one, I don't remember the other one. Oh yeah, Lenny Dawson.
Yeah.
Do you know her?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Leonie
It's not that
Dawson.
I'm her customer or her client or something, but the way that she makes her marketing with all these designs, where she draws herself and she writes herself, and it's really fun.
Doodles.
It's so creative and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a real innocent brand, like a lot of handwriting and a lot of doodles
Yeah.
and a lot of that kind of elements in her design and her presentation, even although she runs a $1 million business.
Yeah.
Right. All of her marketing material is really, it feels like it was made at the kitchen table by hand.
Yes.
Right. And that
Yeah.
gives an authentic, innocent kind of feel to the brand and makes it accessible, right? In that archetype. Yeah. Very well done. There's a great Maverick brand that is very different from what you would expect.
Yes.
Right? It's unexpectedly. So
yeah.
if I had to go to I mean, and this is an overused example of like obviously Apple and Steve Jobs, you know the 1990s commercial where he talks about, the misfits and the square pegs in a round hole, and the crazy ones that are the ones who are crazy enough they think they can change the world are the ones that will change the world. And he talks about those misfits, right? And also he talks about how marketing and branding is all about values, and not just about value, like the value that you deliver. Oh, I lost this much weight, or I made this much money, with your course, or, like I shaved off like 10% of my running sort of time, I mean, those are measurable, but there's also the values like that the company sort of embodies, right? And so the values that Steve Jobs talks about in that commercial is something that people resonate with. They go like, yeah, we're different. We don't want to be stuck in this little box like, the Microsoft or the IBM type of computing. We want to do more with our computers. We want to make the difference. We want to think different. We want to change the world, right? So, sorry, let me just turn this off. So that is definitely Maverick brand. That could be personal brand like Leonie Dawson, or it could be a corporate brand, right? Like Tom's or like Apple. And they're great examples of how to stand out in an overcrowded market. Like, computers are not unique, neither are shoes, but the way it's being sold makes it very unique. And people buy the shoe or the computer not just for the product or the commodity, but really for the value and everything that it represents. So if you can understand that about yourself or about the market, then it becomes a lot easier to differentiate yourself and to stand out in a very overcrowded marketplace, right? So what I often, and I'm just going to look at these the slides a little bit. This is a little bit like what I often hear in working with clients, that they feel that their authentic voice is getting lost in all of the noise, right? It's frustrating when, my own personal values, they're so rich, but they get lost in translation and trying to create a compelling story that engages my audience, right? So I'm trying to, it's either two ways. So one is that I'm talking about my business and I'm trying to explain the spiritual foundation and the values of my business. And when I do that, people look at me like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It goes right over their head, right? Because it sounds too spiritual or too woo or too abstract to them. That's on one side, and that is because, I'm so true to my values, and my values are so important, and my mission and my vision is so important that you forget your business objectives. Because what's the point in communicating something really high that nobody understands, right? So you'll be out of business. It'll be very hard to be in business. On the other side, if you flip over 180 degrees, you forget about talking about your spiritual values, and all you do is you talk about like business objectives and KPIs and funnels and all of that external marketing lingo, which you need to be in business. But if that's all you talk about, then how are you different from anyone else? You're just the exact same thing that we hear all day, right? So how do you still be true to these business objectives while at the same time also don't compromise on your spiritual values, the foundation, really intrinsic value of why you are in business, right? So again, this is not for everyone, but this is definitely for the type of entrepreneurs, holistic entrepreneurs, world changers, the people that I work with, the people also that I love working with. So, and so you may recognize yourself in this, that last slide that I included. It's like, you get perplexed looks when you feel unheard when you're trying to explain the depth and significance of your brand's spiritual foundation. Or as a conscious creator, you're struggling to translate your holistic values into a brand that also speaks to your audience, right? So how do you find that middle road? And then when you feel that your vision is not aligned with your messaging, so you're putting out a lot of content through your newsletter or through your memes or Instagram and social media or YouTube, but you feel that it's actually misaligned with what you truly believe, what you actually want to say, because you feel like you have to make sense to customers that have money to spend, right? So you sound too corporate and you feel disconnected from your own brand. You don't feel happy with your own brand. You don't get fulfillment from engaging with your own brand. So that's a real problem, right? And that's something that we want to explore. And that's also something that we want to talk about. Like, can we find a solution for this? Can we do something about this? Like, what if I'm communicating if I'm communicating values, like what type of value am I communicating? So I wrote a little bit about it in the email yesterday. That I don't know if all of you got it, but the answer lies in understanding that there are three layers. There are three layers of value, right? That a customer might perceive about our brand. The first, so let me just get this slide up here. Let me share the screen here. Let me see. I gotta get this out of the way. Can everyone see? So what sets you apart, the three layers of value that make your brand truly you, okay? And don't mind the designing stuff. I'm really still sort of playing around with ideas like how are we going to develop this and present this and make this into something that comes out of this, like could be a program, could be a course or something. But the three layers of value that make your brand truly you are the service value, are the experiential value, and are the foundational value. And I'll give explanations for each of these. But on the surface, you know, what we showcase or what the public gets to see, it's usually the work that we do, the clients that we've worked with, the logos, the testimonials, the reviews, right, that we get. It is very much on the surface, and anyone can see it with, you know, anyone that comes across our website or any of our sort of marketing, right, the external communication, they get to see it. You know, just underneath that is the experiential value. The experiential value is like when people become a customer, like what do they experience? And that is what they perceive of your brand. They will have a certain opinion about how it feels to engage with your brand, right? They can, and the way that you can make a difference there is that you can say like, well, you know, the way that we work with our customers and how we really truly try to walk in our customers' shoes, and we add a human touch, you know, so that's how you really make the difference in the value that your customers perceive once they are a customer, right? It is still quite, it is experiential, but it is not visible to the people that aren't your customer yet. So the audience doesn't know about it unless they become a customer. So the foundational value, and that's actually the topic that we'll talk about more, is basically all of your life experiences, like you as the business owner, you as the owner of the brand. You know, the foundational value is truly what makes you you and what sets you apart from anyone else. It's the culmination or the sum and substance, right, of all of your life's experience, your mentors, it's the books that you read, it's the hobbies that you have even outside of business, right? It's maybe your spiritual practice that you use like on a daily or weekly or regular basis, right? It doesn't seem like directly related to your business, but it does make you different. And obviously it will also affect the way that you approach your business, right? So, and to use that in your business, actually, that is the ultimate way of being different, because nobody is like you. Nobody has that unique combination of your own life experiences, etc. Right? So the service level or the external level is a very limited level of where you can really differentiate yourself. Like, do you want to have the best website in the entire world in order to differentiate and set yourself apart from everyone else that's out there with similar looking websites or similar brand or like an expensive logo? Is that really how you want to differentiate yourself? Oftentimes, this external level or this external value is ultimately going to be very transactional, and it's going to be very much based on price. So customers will compare you with others, and the thing that they look at is price. Like, how cheap can can I get your service, right? So that, and also the customer loyalty is very thin, because if they can get the same product elsewhere for a cheaper price, they'll probably leave you and go there. So to chase like external trends and service level trends and stuff like that, you will always like remain on the surface. And also it's going to be really hard to make a difference or to stand out unless you are willing to drop the price. And so it's very transactional, and it's not really recommended that you spend too much energy on trying to differentiate yourself on this level, right? Okay. So the experiential value is the processes of how you solve customers' problems, like adding a human touch. It's more than just delivering the transactional service, right? You actually, but people don't know that unless they become your customer. So you can't really differentiate yourself that much on this level because the audience doesn't see it. They don't know it until they become a customer. And of course, once they become a customer, it's up to us to keep them a customer, keep them happy, and to create a longer sort of customer journey for them to remain a customer and to buy more products and to, or programs, etc., and so forth. But it is still hard fought battle because A, the audience doesn't know it until it become your customer, and B, it's like, your competition is doing the same thing. Like, these are things that customers actually expect, that you have a high customer service, that you are actually accessible, that you are transparent, that there is a human touch. I mean, these are all like very nice buzzwords, but they're not really that unique, right? So what makes you really unique? So let me go to the next one. Oh wait, hold on. Yeah, is the foundational value, right? So it is basically the sum or the culmination of all of your life's experiences and influences. It's the mentors that you have learned from. It's the books you read, the hobbies that you have even outside of business, the people in your network. It's the events that have happened in your life that has got you to where you are today, right? Your skill set and all these things. I don't know if I really make sense when I say these things. For a lot of people, this doesn't really matter much because also even in my own experience, like when I was growing up, my dad had a business, and so I was taught to be active in the business and to learn a little bit from my dad. And so it was always about really being professional, and all of this stuff that I'm showing you on this particular slide, like had zero influence. Like my own personal life and preferences and story had nothing to do with how my father wanted me to answer the phone or to engage with customers, right? So for a lot of people, this doesn't really matter that much, but it's typically for those, type of entrepreneurs, holistic entrepreneurs, value, purpose-driven entrepreneurs, that this is really the point that is going to matter the most. The unique experiences that have got you to where you are today. And that also informs the way that you approach your field, the way that you approach, whether it's personal development and entrepreneurship, or whether it's like copywriting or providing a service or anything that has got your sort of like your fingerprint on it. It is not your typical way of how you would expect that service to be delivered. It does have a specific flavor. Am I making sense here in this field? I see that, Anjali, you have got your hand up. You want to unmute?
I do, and please forgive me in advance if it derails what you're trying to say, because I don't know what you have in your last slide, or in your next slide, better said. But I do have to point out some running themes and some running gaps, okay? So a running theme that you started was how you're not the guru, however, you do see the value of what you have learned from your mentors, that your dad was also a mentor to you, even if by osmosis, helping the building
Oh yeah,
of business.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
you yourself have become an entrepreneur. And it also told you the negative values of, I do not want to show up to a customer if I'm not being myself. So that was, he was also your teacher in that way. What I also am listening to is just like how you mentioned about buzzwords. I almost want to go ahead and be the devil's advocate here, in also that there's buzz values. Okay, and here's where I'm bringing it up. You just ended up talking about Tom's
Yeah.
and about Steve Jobs and Apple, right? And they're mavericks for sure. However, both of these mavericks had their problems, and they also did not get to build these names without their own community. Jobs could not have done what he did if he didn't have Wozniak
Mm-hmm.
doing the coding. And even he got kicked out of Apple because he was too much of a maverick.
Yeah.
And his ego was so bad that if Wozniak was employee ID number one, because Jobs did not want to be number two, he didn't want to be second to anyone. He purposely took employee ID number 0. Okay, true story. From there, when it comes, so we're talking about a very narcissistic trash father. By all intents, he was a trash father, but a great entrepreneur. On the flip side, when it comes to Tom's, yes, everybody knows about the Mikoski 1-for-1 model. The problem is that in that buzz value, just like you were mentioning earlier, Anouk, the Tom's model did not work. It failed. There was a decline, and during COVID, because so many other companies were able to copy the Tom's shoe at a lower price, they hurt, and the brick and mortar also died. At this point in time, they ended up having to get a new CEO. Mike Koski ended up divorced and remarried. Last but not least, they have now affiliated with cart.com to be able to go even faster in the fashion industry to get their products and that impulse buy to the consumers quicker. What is my point? My point is that with the buzz values, with being a Maverick, no Maverick can be able to make it without a community. No Maverick can be able to make it on their own. And no Maverick can make it in the long term without implementing some ways to go faster. Okay. So when it comes to these 3 values that you added, even though that it shows that it's unbrandable and a Maverick can go quick, come on, guys. We're not an island.
Yeah,
We've
yeah,
got
no,
to go ahead and show
absolutely.
this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Very good points. Yeah. No, I mean, there are definitely these 2 circles, right? The one is like the personal sort of values, or like what you were talking about, that ego, or that's the sort of like being totally anchored in that mission, and purpose, like Tom's, or you're talking about Steve Jobs is not willing to move an inch from what he believes is the way to go, right? But if you don't like take these business considerations on board, then you're going to be like leaning too much to one side, and that also is not going to be sustainable. You won't be in business for very long. Now, of course, these are big corporate brands, right? So we are here like mostly like we are like one-man bands or women's bands. We're trying, like we are personal brands, and we're like at the very, very early, stages of trying to make a difference in our customers' lives. And so some of these principles obviously may not be sustainable, like in a complete, like forever, sort of infinite, like timeline, right? There's a sort of a shelf life to it. And therefore they need to reinvent, like even if they, stay stuck in where they are, don't innovate, then they're also going to be obsolete. And you see that with other brands that have been replaced by brands that do indeed listen to their community, listen to the market, are willing to pivot, are willing to make a change, even although that means giving up some of their initial purpose or personal values and stuff like that. Yeah, no, this is a very good point. There's definitely something, that gives me food for thought to think about that and consider that. That's definitely a very big one. Yeah, obviously. What I love about what I love about what I'm learning from Sun in working with Jay Shetty, for instance, because Jay Shetty likes to use, and that's actually where I want to get to in the next slide. And I didn't really sort of think about this beforehand, but the story that Jay Shetty talks about is like his time as a monk, right, in the ashram, and the things that he learned, like to be of service, to be to listen, to try to bring healing to the people, to the community, to whoever you come across, and to not always be chasing the next dollar and things like that, right? So it has a very also like very big purpose-driven sort of notion to it. And how do you bring that to the service? Like, so maybe that is a good segue into my into my next slide. Let me just try to share this one here. Just give me a second, okay? This is not going so well. Hold on one second. Here. Right. Yeah, I'm talking about the foundational value, right? Which is basically our own story, right? Because how this comes about, how all of our life experience and our unique view of the world, and the influence that we got from our mentors and teachers, even the books that we read, it's our story, right? That helps to connect all these seemingly loose elements together and connect the dots and make sense, right? We start to then look for a pattern, right? Like, how did we get to where we are? There's definitely something that happened to us in our lives that shaped our perception, that shaped our, not perception, so that shaped our perspectives on things. And hopefully that is an ongoing process, right? That we are not done learning. And so this, if this is the thing that truly sets us apart, our unique mindset, our unique approach to whatever field it is that you're in, then how do we bring this to the surface, right? How do we bring this so that people can see that, can know about that, right? That is through our story. That is what I'm trying to get at in exploring these three layers of value. Is the surface, the external website, the portfolio, the logos of our clients, etc., all of that stuff. Then there's the internal, which is like the way that we solve, problems, the way that we, show our humanity and things like that, which are great. But the real, and this is also why the future of branding is personal branding, right? If Richard Branson were to launch a product tomorrow, he would have customers from day one, right? Now, if you or me or anybody with a great idea and a whole big bag of money wanted to create a product and launch that tomorrow, they have no customers because nobody knows them or their product, right? There's no relationship. So they would have to invest tons of money to earn your trust. And then maybe you might try it. And then the second time you might buy it because it was good. And the third time you might be a loyal customer and tell others about it. There's a longer journey than when Kardashian or whatever influencers are out there, like personal brands, when they launch something new today or tomorrow, they would have customers from day one, right? Therefore, you see people like Kevin O'Leary and like they all start their own YouTube channels. Or TikTok channels, or like they all are sharing their own personal voice about stuff that matters to them, their values, right? The stuff that gets them going, the stuff that gets them riled, the stuff that gets them annoyed, the stuff that upsets them about what's going on in the industry, right? So a really good way for us to find out what our values are to really look at things that really sort of like create a very strong reaction in us. Like what in the industry annoys you? What do you think should be done better or different or more honest or transparent way, right? So our story is really how we totally differentiate ourselves. And to differentiate ourselves is really how we position ourselves, right? It's a unique point of difference that has a unique place in the minds of our customers by our differentiator. And the differentiator, again, is not on the external level or even on the internal level, but it's really in our story that we share. It's kind of the sauce that we pour over our business that makes it interesting. And it's the story that we share that also makes us relatable. Because if you share a story with me and I go like, oh my God, something very similar happened to me as well. Let me share you. So it triggers a story in us. That's when you know that a story is a good story if it triggers a story in the audience, who then also goes like, oh, I totally recognize what you're saying. I totally see what you're talking about. Am I making sense so far? Please raise your hand or say something. Or you want to say something, Anouk, or anybody here, raise your hand if you want to add your 2 cents or your insights so far. I can just continue here. Because I do have an exercise, and hopefully this week it will go better in sending it off to you. It's a workbook with 5 questions. Because I want us to get going with our own story, right? I want us to start pointing out, looking back at our lives, and perhaps maybe to segment our lives in areas like growing up as a child, innocent child, and then maybe like growing up like our adolescent years, and then maybe like going to high school or like 16, 17. And or like our first partner, our first moving out of the house, our first job, our first business, our first client, like look at our lives and maybe pinpoint like 6 areas and like 3 or so stories or events that happened in our lives that changed our perspective, or that changed us, or that helped us. They had an impact on us. So I will actually show the so let me just like look at the comments here before I miss them. Right. So let me just read these out before I go to the next work doc or worksheet that I would like to explore. So for most people, yeah, life is more than just making money as a means to an end. When the show more about our wider values and motives, it helps create a relationship because people have a chance to understand the person behind the brand. We are more inclined to do business with a person instead of just an impersonal brand, right? From like not brands, but friends, right? As I like to say, like it's friending, not branding, right? Like know, like, and trust, the whole formula, right? Maverick has to always be a step ahead, right? Yeah, like defy conformity. The outdoor brand Patagonia. Yeah, Patagonia is a very good Maverick brand, actually. So correct. Brand says a Maverick brand relationship with customers. He can close and open new business, and customers come with him. Yeah, yeah. Telling a story can lead to connection or disconnection, which is definitely an effective way to match or decide not to create, right, business relationship. So it is a clear indication of like something, like it's a filter, right? It's clearly propelling or attracting, but it's never just plain lukewarm vanilla. Like when we're trying to fit in, like we're never going to be able to stand out or attract the kind of people that would really love to work with you, right? If you're always hiding behind a corporate image, the colors, the font, like all that external surface level, then how will the right people ever find you if they don't know what it is that you're about, the values and all that you specifically embody? Yeah, so most solopreneurs haven't pinpointed their core stories or events that brand identity, cash flow, automated system set in place to pivot. How? Yeah, so let's try to look at our story. And I have a worksheet that I'm going to share with you. The brand differentiator, that is our story. That is also how we position ourselves. Let me get this right. Sorry, guys. And see how we do with this. Like personally, I'm actually have been doing this for the past 1 year. That I've really been getting into the storytelling aspect of branding, authentic brand storytelling. It's not new because I feel like, you know, stories are the currency of human relationships, right? It's how we relate. We relate to a story that we share, you know, a vulnerable story. What makes a story a good story? I'm now screen sharing. Yeah. You know, what makes a story a good story? What makes a story a vulnerable story as opposed to a sob story of just trying to get likes because I am a victim and I need your sympathy, right? That's not the kind of story that we are hoping to tell. We want to tell a story that creates human connection and recognition and relatability, because it's all about relationships in the end, right? Like from branding to friending. So and to tell also a vulnerable story, and what makes a story a vulnerable story, right? Like when we tell a story with the idea like, oh, you know, like a publicist would write a story, right? A story of like how I overcame this particular struggle and look at me doing all great. Like you're almost like, it's an ego story that is trying to control the outcome and what people think of me. That's not necessarily a vulnerable story. A vulnerable story is a story that you share and you don't really care about the outcome. You're not too concerned about whether people are going to stop following you or unsubscribe from your newsletter. You know, you're like truly sharing the story from the most vulnerable place of your heart. And that is what makes you a human. That's what makes you a true, authentic brand, right? And that's personally what have always been aspiring to be and to look for and to work with, the kind of people that aspire to be truly honest and to have a brand that is a pure reflection, or a business or that is a pure reflection of their own values and their own personality. So these are 5 questions or 5 boxes here that we can explore in this coming week. And it may not all be as easy, because each of these could almost be unpacked in a whole new hour, in a whole new workshop, right? But I would like to ask you to take some time to reflect on your personal journey and experiences, right, in your life, and encouraging you to dive deep into your past and identify pivotal moments, challenges, or transformations that shaped your beliefs and values, right? This exercise will help you connect with your authentic self and uncover the core elements that make you unique. Is this clear to everyone, or do we need to like try to explore this further? I think this is like what I personally like to do here with this one. Thank you, Anjali. Is to like do a meditation like that's something that I do. Like I could sit down with some nice music, maybe I'll have some incense or something like, but I'd like to really make this into a almost like a ritual or something, a sacred moment. And I've done this like way back in 2009 when I first started. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I had to write a business plan, right? And I wasn't really sure. I had a feeling, I mean, I had a very strong feeling in my heart, but I wasn't 100% sure. Like when you are putting it in a business plan, then it's almost like you're committing to it. It's almost like your wedding vows. Like I will vow to, you know, XYZ and all these things. So I wanted to really be sure about what I was going to put down in my business plan. So like, what is the thing? And I was just sitting down and asking myself, like, what is it that people ask me? Like, what, you know, what is it that I enjoy doing the most? What would I be doing even if I wasn't getting paid to do it? Like, you know, those kind of questions, and just allowing myself in a meditation without trying to force an answer, but just allow sort of the clarity to come to me. And to me, that really worked very well. Like I was very grateful. And it also was quite fast. Like I surrendered to that process, and I don't question it. Like I don't go back and forth, like getting totally in my head. I just trusted like whatever answers were coming, because guess what? If it's not right, or if it doesn't feel right after some time, hey, I'm a human, I can change. You know what I mean? I'm not a business that has a big sort of business plan that the whole company needs to stick to for the next 5 years. Right. So a little soul searching here. So what we can do is you just write down, like, for instance, I could say like, okay, well, there's a story here that I shared in our own in a group with the Night Owls, and it's a story about turning your weakness into a power, into an advantage, into a strength, right? And so I told the story about like when I was 16, I became very inspired and interested in spirituality and meditation and Buddhism. I became a vegetarian, and ultimately I started studying the Bhagavad Gita. And ultimately I ended up joining the Hare Krishna temple, which was like right across the, you know, the street or the corner from where I lived in Amsterdam at that time. And I just loved exploring it. I wasn't a committed member or anything, but I was starting to become more and more committed as I was studying it and experiencing the philosophy like practically in my own life. And so I ended up going to India and really becoming a monk. And then I came back to Holland after a few months of study, and I decided to join the street team, so to say, right? Distributing our sacred scriptures and teachings, etc., on the streets of Amsterdam, dressed like a full-on Hare Krishna with a shaven head and orange robes, right? Quite something for like at the time I was 19. Like, who does that, right? And also, as I was getting out of the van, I was like, I'm not sure if this is actually a good idea. You know, like there's a few of us. It was like 9:30 in the morning, Amsterdam, Monday morning. People are busy going to work. The last thing they want is for a religious person to try and talk to them about giving up drugs and sex and like, you know, liquor and all these things. That's the last thing, especially in Amsterdam, that anyone would want to talk about. So here I am trying to stop these people like, hello, excuse me, ma'am, would you like to have a look at my, you know, vegetarian cookbook or this Bhagavad Gita and all that? I'm like, get a job, dude, like loser, this and that. I was like, oh gosh, it was getting really mental, right? But I was committed. Deep in my heart, I knew I wanted to do this. I wanted to, you know, act without attachment to the result, right? So it was a good exercise that I challenged myself to go and do. So I persevered. And at some point, a lady did stop and said, hey, you know, my sister went to India and she told me about this book and I always wanted to buy one. So maybe this is a good day. This is meant to be. And so she bought a Bhagavad Gita, and then another guy stopped and bought a cookbook. And by the end of the day, I sold a whole case of books, right? So who would have thought at the beginning of that day that I was able to do that just because somehow I was praying, I was persevering, and all these things. Okay, fast forward maybe 20 years, right? I've joined the temple. I've left the temple. I've lived my own life. I am now in New York. I had just landed there. and I needed a job, and I don't know what kind of job I can do. The only thing that I ever learned to do is like selling, right, on the street. So this guy who owns this like marketing firm, they were selling subscriptions on the streets of New York, Fifth Avenue, any of the places, and the subscription was for like a health club with like, like beauty care and all these things. And it was like $100 and you can go to a whole bunch of different salons that were connected to this program. And I had to sell it to people on the street. So this guy that was interviewing me for the job, he's like, well, so Rob, he says, do you know how to like sell? Have you got a problem selling on the streets and being rejected like that? I said, listen, let me tell you a story. So I told him a story about me as a Hare Krishna selling books on the street of Amsterdam and selling out. And he didn't even send me for the second interview. He told me immediately I was hired on the job. He said, because if you can sell Hare Krishna books looking like a Hare Krishna on the streets of Amsterdam, you can do anything anyway. He says, so you're hired. So my apparent weakness or my doubts and all of that, like that I had overcome, like the strength that I found on the other side of that fear, right, became a kind of superpower, I would say. I don't know. I mean, I'm exaggerating the story, but not exaggerating because the events really happened, but I don't know if it's like what I would consider a superpower, but it was definitely something that was unique. That was something that was very different that you don't find in most people. So this part of my story became a differentiator, became a strength of mine also, right? So that would be one item that I would write down here in this first box. And so I would come up with a few more. They don't all have to be like that big or life-changing. They could just be like having a child or like dealing with something in life, like a loss of a dear one, or like, a big disappointment that we had to overcome, like when we got to the vacation and all of a sudden like the house is not there or it's a mess, and how did you deal with it? Like something that, another example, and I will send some examples also in the email. Another example is like, for instance, let's just call her like Sarah, right, who dealt with anxiety and insecurity in her early life, right, as a teenager and stuff like that. And so she decided to take up meditation and mindful living to deal with that. And she was greatly benefited from doing so. So that is something that she did in her life that made a big impact on her, that she carried with her also into her professional life when she became a coach, and she was using these kind of spiritual rituals or methodologies in her approach to coaching and personal development, right? So that became a differentiator. So in the second, and you can just read through these, but in the second, like what we like to do is like make a list of some of our core values, like some of the things that we value, that we think are important in life, that are kind of a non-negotiable for us. That is something that we would never compromise on, or something that is definitely indicative of who we are, of what we find is the most important thing, right? And there's different ways of finding that out, but I will just let you work with this, and then we can discuss next time, like what you find. The crafting your hero's journey in the third one is really to tell me a story of how you, a live event, something that you experienced and that caused you to question your perception or perspective rather. And that actually, so there's an old you and there's a new you, and there's a transformation in the story. Like, I used to think like this, but then this thing happened and it challenged my perspective on it. And so I was able to change my perspective, and now I believe something different, right? So that could be the story that you put here as your hero's journey, because that transformation, it helps you also to approach what it is that you do in your field, like from a different way, from your own unique way, based on your own experience, right? And that's what we're doing in the fourth question, like how does your experience and maybe your spiritual practice or holistic methodologies, how do they inform your unique approach to whatever it is that you do in your field? And then the fifth one is like looking a little bit more into the future, like what is the kind of impact that you like to create in the lives of your audience community or your clients, right? And to paint a picture of what you would like that to be, and how and what you need to become in order to deliver that kind of impact, right? I will send this off. Hopefully it will go right this time. And I'll also send another document that actually has an example here where I filled out these questions to give you like a little sort of like how you call it, like the side wheels, you know, on the bicycle. When you learn to ride a bicycle, you have these like assistant wheels. So yeah. Anyway, we fill up a whole hour here. Is there anyone who wants to add an insight or a question here for me, or something to you know, to clarify? Please don't be shy. I love to hear from you too, instead of like listening to myself talk the whole time. Hey, Ariel. Yeah, if you want to add something, giving both the sheet and the example. Yeah, so I always find having an example of what I'm trying to say is always helpful in getting a little bit like getting started, right? Like when it comes to our life experiences that shaped us, you know, that informs us in how we approach the work that we do, like us as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a brand owner, as a communicator, right? So I would say, hold on, I'm just changing the view here. Yeah, so if anyone has anything to add, please raise your. I know you're all big communicators, so it shouldn't be a big problem. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Because you're not stating a name, I'm just gonna jump in. And so I really do like this. And I've got to say thank you so much, because it's very true, because the idea that I have a degree in international business, minor in marketing, done corporate America for so dang long, and even if I'm technically even a therapist, at the same time, I also was terrified of going into my own core stories for fear of them being too dark. But thanks to this workshop that you've done today, I realized, wait a minute, I do come from that darkness. I do come from that swamp of, you know, and excuse my language, I don't know if it'll offend anybody, but this is a true core value. I'm okay with the word of, it is a fact, life is very fucked up. So in that capacity, I just realized that it is my strength to actually state these strong stories, because the clients that I want are the ones that are really with the deep, dark stuff, because I know what it is to come up from that. I don't need to help the Pollyannas, the people that are super happy and are seeing life is all roses and sunshine. God bless them. The world needs them. At the same time, I also know that the people that I want to help are the ones that are the spawns, that are the punishers, the ones that want to go beyond the cynical and remember that there is sunshine again. So thank you. Can't hear you. You're on mute.
Oh, I said thank you so much, Anjali. That's so good to hear. Like that's exactly the kind of effect that I'm hoping to create in all of us, really, also in myself, in discovering more and more about my own story and how my story, however vulnerable or however sort of like unmarketable that might seem from a strictly academic marketing perspective, like, oh yeah, no, we don't need that. But no, that is the complete opposite. I think if we are being vulnerable and reach, because that's how we're going to attract and relate and make ourselves relatable to those people that uniquely need us, because we are capable and are demonstrating that, because we understand exactly where they have been or where they are. And I got out of it by XYZ. And that's exactly why I created this for you to come into, you know, as a client and come on board and create the same transformation in the people that you serve. Absolutely. That is, you put it so well. You put it so well. Thank you, Harry Ball. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I see. Yeah, I see. Michael has his hand up, and then Anouk, I want you to go next.
Just a little comment. First of all, I wasn't able to fully participate. I only was listening to most of the class today, and it was great. And there was so much to take in, a lot of really good ideas, really good points. A couple of points came up I might want to debate, but that's for another day. But a little anecdote. I was listening to the class today in my dental hygienist chair. So I had my phone on my chest and was listening to it. And when I got up from the chair to get out, she said, "That's a fascinating conversation. Thank you for letting me listen to that." So, I guess the kind of ideas you're talking about relate to anybody in any situation. So I thought I would just give you that validation.
Oh, that's so cool. Thanks for saying that. That's really cool. Well, who knew? I didn't know that the dentist was also.
I did. It wasn't my choice, but I had it in the agenda for a long time and I forgot about it. And I didn't want to miss today. So there you go. I made it work somehow. But yeah, thanks a lot, Rob. Really
Thank you. Yeah.
appreciate it.
No, I'm happy you're here, and I'm happy you found the link because I it's been such a technical sort of nightmare this whole week, and I mean I do this stuff every day, all like and here I am trying to get this thing going, and the links are wrong, the emails don't arrive, the thing was not authenticated. I'm like, there's 25 people that signed up for this, but guess what? I'm very, very happy with you being here, who went through and jumped the hoops to make it work. So thank you so much.
Mercury retrograde.
I know, and I like just blame it on the moonshine, or like
Blame it on the stars. Yeah.
I know, yeah, I was aware of that when we started this journey, but in I fully respect the movements of the planets and the effects that it has. I also still want to persevere and carry on and make
That's it.
make the best of it.
Life
Yeah.
goes on.
Life goes on,
Thanks,
exactly.
Rob.
So thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, guys. So I will send out the replay of this. I will put it on YouTube so we can rewatch it if we want to, or for those who couldn't make it. I will also send you the slides that I talked over and also the two documents. One is the actual 5 questions, and the second one is the examples or the answers to those questions, like as an example to get us a little bit started with this. So yeah, with that being said, it's been an hour and 10 minutes. Thank you so much. We could do a few more. Oh, you wanted to say something, Anouk. Sorry, I forgot. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I like this very much. It's the way I like to do things. I live and work with my clients. And what you said, Angeli, yeah, very inspiring. And I had kind of the similar experience because when you were talking, Rob, I was thinking, okay, what's my story? I've done this, of course, 1,000 times already. But then I thought, okay, I'm always wondering, why do I do this specific work? Because there is something in me that needed it or not anymore. And then I thought, okay, when I was a child, and not even a child, later also, I didn't really feel safe to just say whatever I wanted to say.
Yeah.
I kept it all in, and I didn't really feel safe. And now, when I do the best work I can do, it's working with people and give them the safety, and they feel so safe and so free to be, do, think, say everything they want, anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a real nice connection I made today. So thank
Cool.
you. Yeah.
I know you did mention that a little bit in the answers to the homework in the last answer about feeling afraid to truly speak your truth and the story that makes you who you are, and for fear of maybe like being either ridiculed or neglected or ignored, or just being like maybe you'll lose a follower or a client because you do, so yeah, Yeah, I mean, like in all sorts of shapes, like that fear comes up, or like maybe not necessarily in your case, but it's something that happens to a lot of us and so what we do is we stay safe. We stay within a very safe lane so that we'll never get rejected, or we'll never get ridiculed, or we'll never get, and that's a little bit like what I was thinking, like when I was getting out of the band to sell books in a Hare Krishna, sort of outfit. I was like, oh my God, like that's not being very safe. That's kind of like a lot of people think you're crazy. And I'm okay with that. I was okay with taking that kind of ridicule just to sort of like to practice my own sort of spiritual muscle of being authentic
Yeah.
and true to myself and the thing that I truly believe in, that is coming from a place of no harm. I only want to do good. I only want to uplift. I only want to serve. I only want to do something that is going to be ultimately, uplifting and adding something positive. So, yeah,
Yeah.
great. So, thank you everyone for showing up. Also for giving me some good food for thought. Like I said, I don't like to see myself as a teacher or a guru, and so I need you. I need you to feed back to me. I need you to give me points of where I could improve or an area that I might have missed. Like that whole points that you made, Anjali, about Steve Jobs and Tums and that those are very, very good points to take on board before we blind stare on these things and only do these things. We need all of it. We need to consider the spiritual foundation of our why we are in business, but also like the business aspects of making it a business, and not just a hobby, which could also be very nice. But yeah, that's the two areas that I'd like to talk about also next time. There's this Venn-gram, right? These two circles that overlap, and one circle is the discipline, and the second circle is surrender. And where they overlap, the middle area is flow. It's the effortless effort, right? So when we have systems and when we have a philosophy or, a certain thing in place that we know works, or a decision, or even a brand, or, a strategy that we execute with discipline, and we stay, like if you're creating a brand, but somebody is always trying to define that brand in your team, right? And they're creating their own logo, or they're creating their own letters or their own colors and stuff like that. That's a lack of discipline, right? So you need to be committed and execute the strategy with discipline. So when you have that discipline, and then also on the other side, when you have that surrender means like you let go the ego and you surrender, and you're being vulnerable, and you know that what you're doing will ultimately bring something good. And then what happens is like you enter into the state of flow, which is almost like an effortless effort, because you're not just hoping, but you know that what will come out is going to be good. And also you are willing to pivot, to change, to take suggestions on board. All right, so that will well, bless you, Anouk. So we'll talk about that more next time. I will try to come up with something interesting for us to explore. And for now, thank you so much. And same time, same place next week. And enjoy your, well, weekend is not coming up yet, but it will be. Thank you so much. All righty. Take care.